Meet Nate and Eric. These are two normal teenage boys. They played in a punk rock band, experimented with the peer pressure staples, and enjoyed hanging out with the guys on the weekend. Not so different from you and me. However, Nate carried a very heavy burden. With fighting parents and a sexually abusive mother at home, he began to wear thin under the painful pressures in his life. Finally, driven to the breaking point, he lashed out and killed his mother in an act of vengeance and uncontrollable aggression. Eric, a close and loyal companion, helped him to clean up the mess. This whole event happened in less than an hour. Under the felony murder doctrine, both of these boys were sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The documentary, When Kids Get Life, shows the reality of their situation and explains how their age was not taken into consideration whenever they were sentenced to life in prison. This is a travesty. They were not helped. In fact, they were only punished. Today, I'm going to explain to you the problems with our judicial system in reference to minors and why we need to fix it. The law fails to consider minors as the children that they are, and this seriously flaws our system. According to Paul Mones, parricide defense attorney and author of the book When a Child Kills, legislatures that pass laws that sentence minors to life without parole typically don't care about their rehabilitation. They don't care about giving teenagers any hope. Criminal defense attorney Maureen Kane describes the way of dealing with minors as seriously misguided. According to her, the jump to direct file, which is immediately sending homicidal minors to adult court proceedings, immediately removed the entire identity of children and turned them into murderers that can only be contained with pure punishment. She explains that recidivism rates stayed low in the community-based programs and that often even serious, violent offenders were paroled and successfully re-entered society. We cannot continue to ignore the harsh laws robbing our children of hope and opportunity. We must change them. We must do away with laws that turn minors into faceless, nameless murderers. The felony murder doctrine is a legal doctrine that holds an individual who commits a violent felony responsible for a death that occurs as a result of that felony, regardless of whether or not they intended or directly caused this death. We must do away with things like this for our children. We need to stop using adult models of incarceration whenever children obviously greatly benefit from the community-based programs and have consistently low recidivism rates in these same programs. Defense attorney Paul Mones has never had a single child who was paroled recommit an offense. We must acknowledge this. If we do not take the time to reclaim the identity of our children in the courtroom, our nation will face detrimental consequences, not just for the individuals themselves, but for our country as a whole. We will be stuck in the rut of a nation where the same child that cannot be interrogated without his parents present, cannot enter a pool hall, be in a contract, sell his bicycle, buy an alcoholic drink, or vote, can and will be sentenced to life and death in prison. Rather than be revered as a nation with low prison numbers and a system that saves the children that have fallen into crime, we will be despised as the only nation that commits this violation of international law and sentences minors to life prison without parole. And yes, we do stand alone as the only nation that commits this crime, sentencing minors to life in prison, a life that ends with certain and imminent death in their cage. 42 out of 50 states will have to ask themselves, what is the difference between sending a child to the death penalty, which is obviously crossing the line, and sending them to face a slow, unfulfilling life that ends with death in a jail cell? What made that life without love, without growth, without a fighting chance of dying as the person they once dreamed of being? What made that life so much better than death? They will have to ask themselves, is this simply their way of murdering children? Now is not the time for ignorance. Now is the time for change. We as a society need to take a stand against these laws. Take a stand against these things that are taking away the opportunity and hope for our children. As the college students that we are, freshly established in this adulthood, now we must inform ourselves. Now that we can take a stand in this country, and now that our voice echoes out in this democracy, we must know the laws, and we must vote for the people that we know will change them. We need to follow in the steps of Americans before us and fight for what we believe is right. As Norman Cousins, American author, political journalist, professor, and world peace advocate said, "Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss in life are the things that die inside of us while we still live." Please, do not allow this to plague our country any longer. Help us to know the laws that are taking away the opportunity and lives of our children, the bright-eyed beings to usher in the future of our country. This is not something that one of us can do alone, but something that we all can do together.